Hi, my name is Maya and I'm your astrology crone. And on this channel, I share my life wisdom of 50 plus years that I have lived astrologically. So a lot of my life wisdom has been informed astrologically. So I wanted to speak to that. What does that even mean? What does it mean to live astrologically? So on a practical level, that means working with your natal chart, and what that means further, like how you unpack that, is that knowing your chart. So knowing your chart, like really, like I have been a devotee and a student of my own natal chart since my teens. I have never cared to be an astrologer for someone else, particularly. I eventually was like inevitable because I couldn't speak to anyone without their chart. I'm being silly, of course I could, but it became a necessity, almost like there was so much energy that needed to go that way. But that was never my intention and my desire. I just wanted to use astrology to understand myself. And I was an absolute obsessed devotee to my chart, and by extension to myself, as in my understanding of myself. So, and by devotee, of course, that means daily, that means regular, that means, all the time, right? And so that is one way of practically living astrologically, and another way is through transits. And that is following the planetary movements in the skies, as it were, and watching how that and observing how that affects your natal chart. Or obviously, in my case, my natal chart. And that's like, I mean, yeah, that's the most amazing way of living. I just feel such joy thinking about it, and it's such a rich way of living. So I want to talk about why that is. So obviously, the first thing, there are probably just two things, kind of big, overarching, big umbrellas, and maybe within that there are many more, which I will probably not unpack in this video, but in another. But I just want to speak to those two. So knowing yourself and the power and the meaning and the importance of working with transits. So knowing yourself is like, I mean, I don't know, is there anything more fascinating than to know yourself? And I think that is what we're all here for. I really think so. If I would set up a church, it would be know thyself. That would be the religion. And then the way I would preach it would be astrology. I was just smiling because I thought, well, that might not be a bad idea, actually. I might create something like that. We'll see. But that's it. That's the only religion. That's the only devotion that we all are essentially feeling. We just, I think, like I say, I will never speak for you, but I will suggest that that is the case. I think so. I think it is. But it's only me speaking for the world. And that's certainly true of me. And I know many others who will agree with me, who have agreed with me. And so I think we are put on this planet, or we came onto this planet to experience what it means to be a human in this particular body and incarnation. And I will talk about that philosophy of life, or rather genesis of life and genesis of humanity and the meaning of life in another video, which I will link below. But for the moment, I'm just going to say that. So it's like, so what we are here for is to experience who we are, or rather how we are. Like, oh, I'm like this, and then I'm like that, and oh, look at me, I'm feeling this. Oh, look at me, I'm experiencing this. I have encountered this. I have reacted this way. And that is what it means. I have made this choice. I have had the consequences of the choice happen like this, and look at me experiencing those consequences. I mean, I know that even I don't literally live like that, although I do often. 8 out of 10 times I'm very much speaking to myself like this, but not always. And I suspect most of you don't. I don't know. Let me know. Do let me know if you speak like that to yourself. I'd love to know in the comments. And But ultimately, on a deep, possibly if you haven't made that conscious, on a deep level, we are rather all here to experience what it means to be, in my case, Maya. In your case, Jack, John, Ellen, Sarah, I don't know, any other names, right? It doesn't matter. That's what we're here for, and what we're here for. And so astrology is the most, it's like a map. It's like a map to help you, to keep you back to yourself, to keep getting you back to yourself. So it's like you have that map, and you know that some of the experiences you're going through are actually not your own. You know that energetically, you know that emotionally, you know that because you're either frustrated or upset or unhappy or sad or depressed or whatever. And or you just know, right? You just know that it's not you. You're faking it, and actually it's not giving you satisfaction or meaning. It doesn't feel meaningful to you. It doesn't feel like yours. You just know that. You have that. We all have that feeling when it's not. We ignore it, obviously, because it's much easier that way, and no one necessarily taught us how not to and all that, right? But nevertheless, so if you're interested in being aligned with your own truth, astrology is certainly my favorite way, the only way I do it. There are others, I'm sure. I can probably think of some, but I'm not going to now. But yeah, so that keeps you true to who you are. And knowing your truth is knowing yourself. So that's one practical way of living astrologically. The other practical way of living astrologically is living with transits. Now that is a next level joy. So it's like observing yourself change and evolve, but knowing why. I mean, that's like such an empowering way of being. We all go through changes, right? All kinds of changes, and we are aware of them. We are aware of the change. And we can often, maybe even always, pinpoint like what made it, like what created the change. But do we know, like, deep down why? Do we know why? I don't think we do. I don't know. I don't. I mean, it doesn't, the language of human psychology, let's say, doesn't go deep enough. Archetypes do, and astrology therefore does. And the transits are those archetypes telling, doing the work, or rather activating that change, catalyzing the change for you that you are experiencing. But knowing that that's the transit, that's the archetype that has activated that change in you, is knowing why. And then you have a whole story around it, whole depth of motivation, of meaning, depth of meaning behind your change. I mean, just I hope this is coming across as I intended, which is this reverence, this adoration, this devotion I feel like people, worship. No, not my word. It suggests somewhat lack of agency. So, where, to me at least, the way I use astrology is completely full agency of my own, on my part, right? So I'm not going to say worship, but certainly when something just relentlessly and unwaveringly never lets you down, as a tool to keep returning to yourself and to keep deepening your sense of meaning, of what you're here for and why you are the way you are, and all the rest of identity work and becoming work and belonging work. When there is this tool that keeps just giving, then it's like, yeah, and it gives you, right? So that's the empowerment piece. It doesn't, and it's my chart. That's the beauty. And that's where the power lies. It's not coming from a theory. It's not coming from me only either. So if I didn't have astrology, I would be questioning myself, how objective am I? How actually Am I just like, skiving? Am I just taking the easy way out? Am I telling myself fibs, right? I would. You might. I don't know. You might be next level evolution and you might not have these problems. Fabulous. Let me know. I would be lovely to meet you, kind of. But if you are supposed normal-ish, right? Then I don't think we are that reliable to be our own truth seekers, to be our own verifiers. Like we need, I certainly do, and again, my observation, my 50 plus years of living astrologically, which doesn't mean that there are connections and people that I can't live. I mean, I know their charts, but I don't necessarily talk to them about it, so I don't live them or with them astrologically. And yet I find that this axiom, I suppose, or this way of looking at life and just being, most of us, when left to our own devices and left to ourselves to be our own judge and jury, let's use that expression, are not effective and not good at it. So we let ourselves free where we should have reined in or we should have stepped in, and it's like being a bad parent. By that I mean like someone who spoils their children, doesn't really know how to be the adult in the relationship with the child, right? That's what happens without astrology, when we just have us and we are not using a tool that is not invested in us. Okay, so what are the other ways of verifying? Am I just, reality checks and honesty talk and getting real with yourself, right? And being truthful to yourself, even if it's difficult, right? So if you're just doing it for yourself, with yourself, on your own, I don't think that works, basically. I think it's a long way, and it's a way to the opposite of truth, far more often than not. The other way you can do that is get a friend or someone, or even like a therapist, someone who is outside of you, who's like in that business of helping you stay true to who you are and all that, right? Let's say, and that's fine. And that's to me, that's the next best thing, right? But still, that person is, and it's fantastic. I certainly had therapists in my life, and extremely valuable. But I remember with one therapist, I came to a point where I just really hit the dead end with them. It's like they couldn't give me more, and I'm not gonna go into that because I don't want these videos to be too long anymore. But because she was, or is rather still, but she was at the time a human, right, like me, and she had her own limitations, she had her own issues, and we've been together for like a couple of years at least, working, and I was starting to feel like there was stuff coming through that felt like it was her stuff, right? And I needed to talk about it, and we couldn't, and anyway. And that's my point, because that's another human in their own crap, in their own life. And she was amazing, and this was not inappropriate or anything like that, but it was subtle. It was subtle, and I just needed for that to be cleared, and we couldn't work it. We couldn't work through it. So I ended up without her, and not happy with that, because I wanted to have that someone else outside of me. Now, I was at the time also into astrology, but I wasn't as skilled at all of that as I am now. So this was in my 20s, late 20s, early 30s. So, and I'm in my 50s now. So astrology, compared to these two options, either self-reliance completely, like, I'm my own best therapist and coach and whatever, right? To me, that's not strong enough, not reliable enough. Then the therapist is far better, but it's still not 100%, or rather it's still not as reliable as it can be. And then, because they're human still, and then there is astrology. And why astrology to me? Or it could be human design as well, and those are the only two things I can think of. Possibly tarot, although I'm not really. Anyway, I'll speak only astrology, since that's my main thing. why is that most reliable? Why is that the cleanest, the most trustworthy tool and method to keep yourself honest to yourself, and therefore live your own life? And because that's the whole point. I mean, the only times we're ever unhappy is because we don't live our own life, we live someone else's life, you know. So why astrology is the most reliable and the most trusting thing is because it's you. So it knows you the best, but it's impersonal. It has no issues. Now, you or the astrologer, and I'm going to have a whole series of how to be your own astrologer, because I think that's the future of astrology, and that's the future of humanity, to be our own whatever. Maybe not dentists and surgeons, but everything else that we can, hairdressers, you know, I don't know, but certainly astrologers. So I'll have a separate whole series on that. But the archetypes are not here to judge you or to judge us. They're here to give us the experience of who we are, to give us our truth. So in that sense, they're impersonal. And in another video, which I will link below, I talk about what is the meaning of life, which is, I know it's such a huge question, but that's where the purpose comes into it, to give us in as specific detail and unique detail as our chart presents it. And so the reason it is meaningful to live with transits, to live astrologically using transits, is that it explains to us why we are evolving the way we are evolving. And answering the question why, when it comes to anything to do with ourselves and our life, is how we find meaning in our life. So like I say, you will want to watch my video on the meaning of life with Maya. The link will be below this one, to kind of get a better understanding, at least when I speak of that, what I mean. And certainly astrology being the main protagonist in that story. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this, for being here with me. And if you have any questions or about what I just shared, or is there anything for you want me to elaborate on more that it's not clear, leave me in the comments and I will use that to create new content. So thank you.